Hello YouTube, I mainly collect 80s toys because I grew up in the 80s and I've been mainly collecting back toys that I used to own. There aren't very many 90s figures that draw my attention, but these were some of them. These are called SNAILIENS, and normally on eBay they seem to be going for between sort of 20 and £30 each. I managed to buy a job lot for £30 and it came with 8 SNAILIENS. At the time I had no idea, but that is a complete set. I didn't get all the little sidekicks that go with each of these, but I got all 8 of the main figures, and they all came with their suits apart from one which I had to buy separately. The first 4 that I just showed you were the goodies. Those are the heroic SNAILIENS. These 4 are the baddies. These are called the LUNARTICKS. I like them all, but if I had to choose, I'd probably go with these baddies because they're just much more interesting looking monster creatures, and their suits look a bit more formidable with like cutting discs and stuff in there as well. While you have a look at the jetpacks on the backs of all their suits, I'll tell you a little bit about the SNAILIENS storyline. It's quite funny. Basically, they came from a different planet and they landed on ours, and then they ended up in a place called Snail Francisco. and basically, they were looking for names, and there was a whole load of coins, and they decided to name themselves after the ex-presidents that were on the coins. So I'll go through all of their names separately when I show you them out of their suits. The whole point with these figures is that the little figures detach from their suits. So here you go. This first one is called Jefferson. He comes with a little sidekick called Jet. I haven't got any of the sidekicks apart from one, which I'll show you separately. This guy's called Roosevelt, and he's got a sidekick called Cruz. I'm going to have to buy all of these little sidekicks separately, that's the only problem. Then this guy's called Washington, and he's got a sidekick called Sparks. And this guy is called Lincoln, and his sidekick is called Charger, and that's the sidekick that I managed to get so far. Then with the Lunatics, we've got this guy Drool. He's got a sidekick called Drippy. Then this one is Zug, and he's got a sidekick called Itchy. And then we've got Blaster, and he's got a sidekick called Blister. And finally, this one's called Armadillo, and he's got a sidekick called Wart. Sorry, I probably didn't get any of the presidents' names in the right order, but anyway, I thought I'd pick one of these up just to show you the size that they are, just to give you some idea. They're nice and small. I really like small figures. These kind of remind me a little bit of, the Battle Beasts and that kind of thing. They're a bit bigger than Battle Beasts, but not by much. I think you can see why I prefer these Lunatics, just with their little kind of monstrous look about them, and the fact that they've got 4 kind of arms or tentacle type things, and yeah, just really quirky little characters. I feel particularly lucky to have been able to pick up all of these for about £30 on eBay. I was just in the right place at the right time. The actual SNAILIENS figures are pretty cool. I think their faces really look quite snail-like in actual fact, with their funny lips and things. There's something about them that does remind me of a snail, believe it or not. And obviously they go in their little suits as well, so their little shells. So that kind of makes them more snail-like as well. But I think when I told my wife I was getting some SNAILIENS, which is a cool word in itself, my wife was expecting them to look more like snails, so she was a bit disappointed. But I wasn't, I just really like them the way they are. So hopefully that shows you what they look like in all their kind of shorts and armbands and bits and bobs. And you can see that the colour very clearly matches the particular suit. So there's no problem when it comes to kind of getting them mixed up with their particular suit. Right, I need to show you my only SNAILIEN which is complete so that I can show you his sidekick. And that is Lincoln with his sidekick Charger. So I'll just zoom in on this one and we'll get him out, we'll have a little look at what they look like when they're complete. Obviously with this guy as well, he's got a little green beard, which is quite cool. And here's his suit. I thought I'd show you this because you can see on the underside they have like little pegs, and the pegs slot into the back part of the suit to keep it nice and snug while it's on him. Here's the back section, and the back section has holes in that the pegs slot into. It's quite a tight fit, which is quite nice. You can see there's a really big peg on the front here, just by the shoulder. Nice thick peg, and that is what the little sidekick slots onto. So here's his sidekick. This is Charger. Like I say, it's going to be a real pain for me to try and track down all these other tiny little sidekicks. But if I can, I'll just do it gradually, I think, and if I can get them all complete at some point, that would be great. But I'm not in any hurry because, like I say, they feel complete just as a set of 8 anyway. When these came in a packet, they came with like a collector's card, and I think there was like this popper thing that you could use to kind of fire things across a room. So I think it came with the one popper and a couple of things you could fire, and obviously the little sidekick and the suit and the SNAILIEN or lunatic. I'm not fussed about getting one of those poppers for every SNAILIEN that I've got, and the firing things as well. I'm not fussed about those. So I might just buy like one example of a popper and maybe an example of something that you can fire. If the poppers were a different colour for the SNAILIENS compared to the lunatics, I might buy one of each colour. But anyway, that's a future kind of little project or thing for me to look out for. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed this video on the SNAILIENS. Check out my other videos. Like I say, they're mainly 80s toy videos, but there are some 90s toys as well. Hit subscribe to see anything that I post up in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.